sounds about how they care about the hostages, how they want to defeat Hamas, and how they want to get the hostages out. Those are supposed to be the two principal goals, but those are not the two principal goals. The principal goal is to ethnically cleanse Gaza. It's to drive all the Palestinians out. And if that means that the remaining hostages have to die, so be it.
John Mearsheimer denies that Israel's actually trying to seek a new ceasefire in Gaza and has actually acted to sabotage any prospect of one, as the recent strike in Doha shows. He gets into what this means for U.S. politics and Israel's true plan for Gaza. So let's get it from him. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
That's the basic policy here.
We've been talking, of course, almost nonstop in the past 2 days about the Israeli attack on Doha, on the negotiators in Doha, on the Hamas negotiators in Doha. What's your big picture take on this, Professor?
Well, in a certain sense, it's not surprising because it fits in very neatly with the Israeli strategy. Here in the United States and in the West more generally, we pretend that Israel is serious about negotiating some sort of deal to put an end to the war in Gaza. But that's not what's going on here. What the Israelis are bent on doing is making sure there is no ceasefire, and there's certainly no peace agreement involving Gaza, because they want to ethnically cleanse Gaza. And this is all designed to ethnically cleanse Gaza. It's part of a bigger picture that involves raising Gaza City, which they're now starting to do, making it unlivable, driving all of the Palestinians in the northern part of Gaza down to the south, where most of them are now, putting them in a giant concentration camp in preparation for either murdering them or driving them into Egypt, or both.
Yeah, man, sounds grim, but I can't disagree with them whatsoever. If they actually wanted a ceasefire, they wouldn't have violated the first ceasefire. Netanyahu wouldn't, because Hamas was willing to exchange hostages. They still have about 50. And I don't think Netanyahu wants those hostages back. They serve as a propaganda tool for him to occupy Gaza, drive the people south. That's already happened, as you heard Mearsheimer said. Anthony Aguilar has correctly called Gaza City the apocalypse zone because they are making it unlivable. But look, they murdered this diplomatic team that was going to set up a new hostage exchange in Qatar. And we're just supposed to believe that they actually want the hostages back? No one can believe that. No one should trust Netanyahu, because the way you know he's lying is when he moves his mouth. That's how you know. So Mearsheimer's right about this.
Is there any question about whether or not the United States gave the green light?
It's hard to believe that the United States didn't give him the green light, in the sense that the United States knew that this was coming and said it's okay to do it. There's no way, in my opinion, that they could have flown into Qatar, given that we have a huge naval base, a huge air base there, and all sorts of surveillance capabilities. They would have had to tell us they were coming. And if they didn't tell us, we surely saw them coming. And we could have told them to turn back if we wanted to. But let's face it, the Trump administration is in cahoots with the Israelis. This is a tag team. They're executing a genocide in Gaza. The Trump administration is fully complicit in that genocide. With regard to the 12-day war against Iran, again, the tag team was in action, the United States and Israel. And you see it again here. So I'm sure that they gave them the green light.
Yeah, absolutely. The U.S. is tied to the hip of Israel. Trump boasts about how close he is with Netanyahu, pleads with the Knesset to drop the corruption and fraud charges against him, sides with him in war versus Iran instead of negotiating with Iran, abruptly switching the U.S. diplomatic tactic from, hey, we don't want you to get nuclear weapons, to, no, you can't enrich uranium whatsoever. That was the quick pivot of the Witkoff team in Iran, which was guaranteed to be a non-starter, something Iran couldn't agree to, and signaled Trump's willingness to bomb Iran. And that's exactly what he did. We haven't seen the end of that, but the same goes for Gaza. And this assassination in Qatar, of course they knew about it. This is an odd relationship, to say the least. There's really no comparison to it. It's where the benefactor, the U.S., sending $20 billion to Israel last year, somehow gets more influenced by Israel within the United States through the Israel lobby and AIPAC, which Mearsheimer's written quite a bit about. And we're just supposed to pretend that there's nothing wrong with that. If you're an American and your government is siding on Israel first foreign policy every single time, and we're just supposed to pretend that that's just fine, and we're just going to keep living that way. No, I refuse to.
Is it credible that Trump did not know about this?
It is possible. Do I think it's likely? No. I think that he was told, but you can never know for sure. I mean, this is not an administration that works in what I would call a rational legal fashion. And in fact, it doesn't really even come close to acting in a rational legal fashion. Sometimes the right hand does not know what the left hand is doing. So it is possible that Trump didn't know that people down below, like Radcliffe, who's the head of the CIA, or Marco Rubio, didn't feel it was necessary to tell him. I do find that hard to believe, but it is possible.
I guess so too, but we know that the deep state moves the state possibly more than the U.S. president. That's what Russiagate showed. That's what the CIA coup against Kennedy showed. You know, these rogue policies being created to overthrow governments and enact foreign policy regardless of the electoral will of the public has been part of American life for 60 plus years now. That is the truth. It's hard for me to believe that Trump didn't know here because, you know, the people in his deep state, at least those heading it, are his men now. And for him not to know would be a slap in the face to him. But, you know, maybe they can still get away with it in today's deep state. I don't know, but I tend to agree with Mearsheimer here.
If he didn't know, who's running the executive branch of the federal government?
Well, they're all on the same page. It really doesn't matter whether he knew. If he knew, he was going to approve it anyway. He doesn't tell the Israelis they can't do something. If they want to do it, they do it. And if there's an outcry, the United States helps protect Israel. That's just the way it works. The administration is strewn with people who are basically Zionists. They'll support anything that Israel does. You really want to sit back and just sort of think about the relationship between the United States and Israel and just how truly remarkable it is. There's nothing in recorded history that even comes close to this relationship. Here we have a tiny little country that is able to wrap the United States of America around its finger. If you look at how President Trump deals with almost every other country on the planet, he slaps them around at least once a week, every other country. But here's this country, Israel, that can do anything it wants, and we support it. And we give it huge amounts of military assistance, huge amounts of economic assistance, huge amounts of diplomatic cover. This is truly remarkable. And it's certainly not in our interest. I mean, no great power would allow this to happen if it could prevent it.
Yeah, where is China's Israel? And where is Russia's Israel? They don't have one. They actually wield their own sovereignty, regardless of how tyrannical you think those states are. I happen to think all states are tyrannical, but he is exactly right here. This is so true that there's no way Trump's going to say no. He never uses U.S. leverage to stop Israel from doing what supposedly the U.S. doesn't like. I think Trump does like it. And Mearsheimer's right. They're in cahoots. The best example of Trump slapping around a country, and this is a major country of utmost importance to good relations with the U.S., is India. He just slapped a 50% tariff, secondary tariff, on Indian goods that Americans will pay, by the way. And that is a country we benefit enormously from trading with. But look at how Trump treats India compared to how he treats Israel, the country that the U.S. gives $20 billion a year to, last year at least. And I think we're on pace to do something like that this year. Before that, it was something like $4 billion every single year. You know, in totality, I think they've gotten like $310 billion from the U.S. public, by the way, while we're set $37 trillion in debt, while there's an inflation crisis that won't stop as long as the Fed prints money and lowers the interest rates, by the way. That's what we're dealing with here, and this is not acceptable. If you actually are America first, if you actually want us to not, embrace this stupid Israel first mentality that drags us into war and bankrolling genocides, it's not acceptable.
Does Netanyahu ask Trump for permission, or just tell Trump what he's about to do?
I don't think he asked for permission. I think that Netanyahu is smart enough that he probably runs operations like this by the administration. He tells them what's coming in most cases. He may wait to the last moment to tell them in some instances. Who knows for sure? But I find it hard to believe that he would ask for permission. He doesn't have to ask for permission. He can do whatever he wants. And whatever he does, we'll back him. It's just the way it works.
It is. Miriam Adelson gave Trump $100 million so that he just defaults to whatever Netanyahu wants. And it's not unique to Trump. The Israel lobby had its talons sunk deep into Biden and Bush and Obama, too, clearly so. U.S. policy is sometimes indistinguishable from Israeli policy. The Mossad, to some extent, is indistinguishable from the CIA. So Mearsheimer's exactly right. The default is to back Israel, to give them diplomatic cover, to fund whatever, expeditions they want to do. And right now it's the Greater Israel Project. They don't hide this. The idea of expanding Israel's borders beyond what they are. They're doing it in the West Bank, expanding the settlements there into Syria and Lebanon. They've bombed 7 of their neighbors since October 7th, recently assassinating officials in both Qatar and in Yemen. And this is just, inheriting all of the enemies of our ally. And I say that loosely when it comes to Israel in the Middle East. It's something that Washington and Jefferson warned against. Don't get into entangling alliances. Well, that's a pitfall, and that's something that our government is stumbling into every single time.
Does this attack effectively seal the fate of the hostages?
I don't know for sure. It does, I think, depend on whether you get some sort of meaningful ceasefire, in the next month. I think the longer this drags on, not only the more Palestinians die, but the more hostages die. So this is a huge problem for keeping the hostages alive. And you want to remember that there's a belief that a good number of those hostages are in Gaza City. And if Gaza City is raised and they push the Palestinians out of the north, one would imagine in those circumstances, a good number of the remaining hostages will die. But it's quite clear that the Israelis don't care. Or let me put it differently. The Israeli government doesn't care about the hostages. They'll make a lot of sounds about how they care about the hostages, how they want to defeat Hamas, and how they want to get the hostages out. Those are supposed to be the 2 principal goals. But those are not the 2 principal goals. The principal goal is to ethnically cleanse Gaza. It's to drive all of the Palestinians out. And if that means that the remaining hostages have to die, so be it. That's the basic policy here. The Israelis, of course, are not going to come out and say that. But all you have to do is look at what's happening, and you can quickly deduce that that is their basic strategy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Their propaganda doesn't align with what they're actually doing. The hostages serve only as a propaganda tool to let Netanyahu do whatever he wants. That's why he didn't finish the exchanges, which he could have in the phases of the initial ceasefire that Trump orchestrated and engineered as he walked into the Oval Office. But Benjamin Netanyahu never intended to keep that ceasefire forever. They still have hostages that they could achieve if they didn't bomb the diplomatic arrangement that was set to negotiate for the exchange to continue in Qatar, in Doha. That's what could happen. So I'm sick of hearing that the Israeli government just wants the hostages. They clearly don't. It's just a propaganda tool to say that. And by the way, the hostages are disproportionate. Israel has thousands of Palestinian hostages they're holding under secret charges. Actually, not even charges, just secret evidence, and they haven't charged those people with any crimes. And Gaza has something like 50 hostages left, 30 maybe. We don't fully know the number. But that's the differential here. And we only hear in the mainstream news about the hostages that the Palestinians have. Why? Again, to give cover to Israel. To maintain this lie that that's what this is over. No, this is about the Greater Israel Project and the subjugation of Gaza, the complete subjugation to finish what the subjugation was, already before October 7th. That's what this is about. The propaganda reminds me of the U.S. saying that, well, Iraq has weapons of mass destruction, so we have to invade Iraq. No, you wanted to invade Iraq for conquest and, for lucrative government contracts. That's what you invaded Iraq for. It had no connection to terrorism, no connection to weapons of mass destruction that were tangible threats against the United States whatsoever. But that's what they sold us. And that's what they lied about, because it was more palatable for Americans to support that policy when they lied about it. That's what Israel's doing here. And the United States is backing them to the core. It's pathetic. It's not America first. And U.S. needs to withdraw all support to Israel. Bring all the troops in the Middle East home. Call that radical, but I say that's sensible, because that's in alignment with the original America idea of not embroiling ourselves in entangling alliances. It's always a trap, financially, morally, and in terms of impediments to foreign policy. That's what this is. But I do want to hear from you. Is John Mearsheimer right? What is Israel's true goal? Do they actually want to get the hostages back? Are the hostages just a propaganda tool for Netanyahu? And does Trump really ever use leverage over Israel? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Judge Napolitano too. Really appreciated this interview with Mearsheimer. Awesome guest, brilliant political analyst in terms of foreign policy. Please also consider joining the channel as a member. If you click the join button below, you can support the channel, and in return, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.